better believe it. Alex here, back in my basement. I have Anakin Starkillers prototype perfect cast here, and before I mail it out to him, I want to go over everything that I did to it. So this is what I call the NASA Saber. This is the V3 after Return of the Jedi. It was in the archives, and they were going to put it into space with some promotion with NASA, and so they dressed it all up pretty crudely. No disrespect to the person who did that. So this is a tribute to that. So like all my other videos, let's start at the top and work our way down. This is FX capable. It actually has the same internal dimensions as the DS2. So if you wanted to throw a DS2 chassis in here, you could. The emitter here is FX capable as well, and it's pretty deep to allow the PCB connector and the blade to sit in there good. But on the real V3, it's only machined down enough for a bearing to sit in there for the drive shaft to spin on. So I machine a aluminum plug that goes in there, and I have a steel drive shaft inside there, just like on the real prop. And that steel drive shaft goes all the way down through a silver shaft inside here to give it the extra weight. With this being the NASA Saber, I'm pretty sure after Return of the Jedi, they drilled this hole here. For what reason, I don't know, but there's a hole here, a 5mm hole, so I drilled that 5mm hole. Again, it's a builder's kit, so I had to drill this 3mm hole here that locks the drive shaft in. You can see on the wind vane, it's a 3-stage paint job. Well, actually, it's a 4-stage paint job with many different layers, all airbrushed, and I use a special technique with a special compound to remove the paint in certain areas, like on the real prop, that makes it look like it's been worn off with your hands. I don't know if I'll be able to get that on screen, but you can see where it's been brushed off. Underneath too, that same compound, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. You can see black underneath, because the emitter is black, and then they crudely brushed some copper paint on top of it with silver underneath and another black. So I did that multi-step, multi-stage paint job. The emitter here, they wrapped in some chrome tape. So I put the chrome tape on there, and the chrome tape is cut on an angle and in the exact location it should be on the prop. So that seam there is where it should be, corresponding to the 5mm hole. That goes for all the tape on this V3. The ring section I did in my favorite 7578 flat black. I don't know if you can pick up on screen, but I chipped in with a chisel the seam line so the paint falls in there and simulates the casting line in the ring section. You can see it clear as day with your eyes, but I don't know if you can catch that on screen. You have to be very careful on where these go, because I've seen other people use the clamp as orientation to these seam lines, and the clamp is very loose on the V3 today and spins freely and is not in the same location in every photo. It's all over the place. So if you're using the clamp as orientation, the seam line is going to be in the wrong spot. The booster here, the whole entire hilt is acid aged with many different baths, many different soaks to get it this pewter color. The V3 was used probably the most as a shared stunt throughout the original trilogy. So it had the most oils on it from your hands, and that helps tarnish the aluminum. The clamp is actually a leftover DS2 clamp. Starkiller is going to supply you with a clamp. The perfect cast comes with a clamp. I don't have the perfect cast clamps, but I did have a few DS2 clamps. So I ended up chemically aging and polishing and graining the clamp, and then Starkiller told me he wanted more of a NASA tribute, so that too is wrapped in the chrome tape. But I also had to drill the holes in it and give it just a little countersink, just a little bit of a countersink, because you can see that on the real prop today. These are in the exact locations they should be. I have a paper template that Trooper Trent made for us years ago, and I used that to locate the holes, and then I covered the clamp in chrome tape. We now can confirm that this clamp did come off of Luke's ESB Graflex stunt. There's one photo where you can clearly see that one screw there, so the many years of speculation were true. It did come off of a Graflex stunt. The booster, I have all sorts of pits and dings and dents to look like it's came out of a metal foundry, like a metal casting. There's a lot of physical damage on here too. That's not random. I was lucky enough to get some really good reference photos of it from a friend who got to see it in person, and I incorporated all those dings and dents on the booster and the pommel. So a lot of these dings and dents on the pommel are not public. They are from my friend when he went there and got to examine it, and then took the photos for me. The V3 also has a milling circle, so I added that to this. This is a builder's kit, so Starkiller and I talked, if we added the milling circle, then it's exclusive to the V3, whereas if we didn't add it, you could make this the V3, the Death Saber, the Warehouse Stunt. You can even machine this into a V2 if you wanted to. So we decided to leave that off. This is Starkiller's prototype, so it did come with a hole for the power wire to spin the motor. Again, that's not going to be on the one in the store. You're going to have to drill it yourself. And Trooper Trent years ago made a template for me for that as well. So you just cut the template out and trace it and center punch it and drill your hole there. You can see the seam lines on the chrome tape and the overlap. They overlapped it. I have that exactly where it needs to be, and very little damage on the bottom. And the D-ring is the main reason why this video took so long to get out, is because I have over 400 D-rings in the shed. I'm not lying. There's over 450 D-rings in the shed, and I just sent 100 of them to Starkiller. I just kept on trying. The batch before this, and the minimum you could get is like 150 at a time. The batch before this was off by 1 millimeter. So when I contacted the shop, I said I need it a millimeter smaller, and they're like, "What? It's a millimeter." I said, "Yeah, but I need it a millimeter smaller. Can you get me them a millimeter smaller?" And they ended up finding one and getting me the exact one that I needed. So now all the perfect casts will come with the perfect V3 D-ring for you, and you don't need to cut it. Do not cut it. Just spread it and clip it on, because it's supposed to slide in here, and you're supposed to see a little seam there. And on the real V3, she jingles all over the place and hangs today. So that's mainly why it's taken so long to get this video out, is because I've been going over and over on D-rings. So the clamp card here is made out of a piece of brass stock, and I weathered it ever so slightly and made the black lines out of electrical tape like the real prop today. They simply just cut some strips of electrical tape and put it on there. Some of them are a little wonky. I've tried to copy exactly how it is on the real prop. Each one is a different size too, so I made a special jig that I 3D printed so I could cut the electrical tape exactly the way I needed it. And it took me a long time with that jig, because I had to, believe it or not, compensate for the thickness of the blade when I cut it. Because when I was cutting it, they were actually coming out smaller, so I had to make the jig bigger to make up for the width of the blade. But that's the clamp card there. You can see the electrical tape, and you can see here the brass stock I don't know if you can see it if it's in focus. The lever is beat to hell on this thing, and I copied that as well. Chemically aged it, and there is, like, and I was going to save this for Patreon, but there is a weird piece of tape on the lever. I don't know if it's on there today, like right now, but when my friend was examining it and sending me the photos, we were actually on FaceTime together, there was a piece of tape. So I incorporated that piece of tape. The set screw here, it protrudes outwards. When you're handling this thing, the real prop, the pommel is ready to fall off. It's very, very wiggly. This is a piss poor way of attachment, and that's how they did it to all the stunts. With the CNC replica, it is held on there perfectly, but with the old cast, she wobbles. So the way that it is right now, it protrudes up. And believe it or not, there's a photo, a pretty damn good photo, where you can see, and it looks like the same set screw is up on screen. So I have this set screw up here. It's got to be pretty uncomfortable for the actor to grip with that sticking up like that. Like I said, this has the silver shaft in it. So the machined aluminum slug in there with a locking collar and a drive shaft, just like the real prop. But this is Starkillers' personal V3. Like I said, these are going to be in his store wicked soon. I mean, within, maybe possibly even within a week. Now that I sent him the D-rings, he's got the last pieces that we need, and ready to rock and roll. I have to apologize to everybody for how long this has taken. I blame myself because I'm obsessed with these little things. The D-ring before this would have been okay, but I still wanted that 1 millimeter smaller, and sure enough, they found one for me. So it's much better. This is a much better setup than the previous one. So we'll go one more time, one more overview. Check everything out. All the chips in the ring section aren't random. Those are from reference photos. And then the copper neck, the multi-stage on it, all the physical damage on the wind vane, the missing paint. A little bit of damage on the bottom, nothing serious. But I actually have, this is Starkillers' 2016 prototype. This is his model that he had prototyped, and I 3D printed it. Well, I had Shapeways 3D print it because I was planning on making Risen stunts. You see on the sail barge, him having these on his belt. You see him tuck it into his tunic when he yells to Leia, "Come on!" This is also, the Risen stunt is also the one that he is thrown at Palpatine when he just gives up. "I'm sorry, Your Highness," or whatever he says. But I just want to show that I've had this in my collection forever. And this is where the first wonky pommel came from. This Starkiller pommel has been a secret for many, many years. Since 2016. I've had this prototype since 2016. This one. And it's been in my collection ever since. But I wanted to show you guys where it all started from. You can see the seam line in the casting. Can you see it? Yeah, you can see it. But yeah, I was gonna cast those up in Risen, but maybe I will one day. I don't know. I think that's gonna wrap up everything I wanted to talk about Starkiller's NASA saber. Well, like I said, the perfect cast can be made into multiple versions of the Kenobi stunt. Again, the Death Saber, V3. Again, the Throne Room V3, which is different than this V3, and I'll have a video on my Patreon when I launch that. I'm like 2 months behind on that. That's gonna be my first video on my Patreon, is the Throne Room V3, which I codenamed Veda Slayer. Veda Slayer. In New England, we don't pronounce our R's, so Veda Slayer. So that would be my very first video on my Patreon explaining the Veda Slayer. Then you have, you can actually take this, if you missed out on the DS2 run, you can actually take this and machine it into a DS2. If you have a big enough lathe, it doesn't take too much work. But on my little lathe in the shed, it's a process to make it. I can do it. I have no problem doing it, but it's a process to do it. But if I had a bigger one, it'd be much easier. So there's multiple versions of the kenobi stunt that you can make out of the perfect cast, and that's how we wanted to do it. The holes, where you have to drill the holes for this version, is already on the RPF. Trooper Trent spent a couple nights with me walking me through measurements and everything, and finding the right hole size, and made templates for me to locate where to drill the holes. So it's really, really simple. If you've put stencils on a V2, then you could do this. It's very, very simple. Don't be intimidated. I think that's going to wrap up this video. Your best way of being informed of when these go live is subscribing to this channel and hitting the notification bell. I always give a 24-hour heads-up video of when he puts them in the store. So make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell. With all that said, I want to thank you all for watching. Keep an eye out for the next video. And most importantly, be kind to one another. This is Halowax. Out.